I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Susquehanna Township Board of Commissioners. I would note that all commissioners are present sometimes, with the exception of Commissioner Engel, who is excused tonight. We'll have a Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence, and the pledge will be led this week by Justin Fleming.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everybody. I would like to note for the record that the board did meet in executive session to discuss matters of litigation, real estate, and personnel as permitted under law. We'll start tonight with petitions, complaints, and suggestions from citizens. Anybody wish to speak and address the board? Seeing none, we'll go on to the approval of minutes from our March 12th meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Move to approve and second. Any comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Reports of committees, buildings and grounds. Commissioner Pine.
Mr. President, just one quick note that discussions we've had for some time now, the purchase of land from the Fish and Boat Commission, we've seen an approval by the Fish and Boat Commission to sell the township the land, and we're talking about the land adjacent to the township's garage and property. It totals 8.5 acres, and we expect that we'll be in a position to approve that here in our June meeting. And that's all, Mr. President.
Great. Thanks. It was a long project, and it's coming in. Appreciate your work on that, as well as Mr. Schubert. Budget and Finance, Commissioner Sanderson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very briefly, we did have our first meeting of the year to review some proposals. Included in the agenda tonight is one of them regarding an item for a Dauphin County Infrastructure Bank loan. We'll hold off on that until that point in the agenda. There are no surprises at this point in time. Of course, it's April, so we're really just looking for operational questions about any plans to make for the year. Certainly, the offer stands to all commissioners. If you would like to attend Budget and Finance Committee meeting, we hold them about once every month. I don't think we have the next one scheduled yet, but we should have one very soon. And if you have any interest, we can't have more than 4. Let Mr. Myers know, please, or me. But we'll get it scheduled. And that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Highways, Commissioner Napper.
Yes, Mr. President. The Highway Department report for the month of March. The Highway Department installed new signs and repaired damaged signs, patched potholes, cleaning out storm drains throughout the township, repaired grass and lawn areas in the township right-of-way caused by township plows. And as a reminder, the 2015 street sweeping schedule began March 16th and should be completed on or about May 29th. The street sweeping schedule is posted on the township website. Street sweeping is processing a little slower this year due to the harsh winter and the amount of material on the roadway. And as a final note, Mr. President, yard waste collection for the month of April is scheduled for Saturday, April 18th. This ends my report, sir.
Thank you very much, Commissioner.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I'd like to make a comment, if I may, regarding the street sweeping. I was contacted by several residents, and I've passed along some of these notes of thanks already, but they wanted to express their appreciation for the great job that the Highway Department did sweeping the streets and the great care they took. And I think I passed along to you a couple specific instances, and especially with all the gravel that was down on the road. You guys did a great job, so thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Health and Sanitation, Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to follow up on what Commissioner Napper said, the next yard waste will be April 18th, and the following one will be May 16th. And Dauphin County Recycling Center is having an Earth Day celebration, and that will be April 18th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at its facility on 1620 South 19th Street. And at this time, I'd like to call Health Officer Johnson to come up to the podium.
Good evening, Commissioners. Basically, Commissioner Johnson has called me up here to discuss a pending draft of an ordinance that has to do with vacant properties. It's entitled, it's a door and window ordinance. This ordinance was first introduced in Philadelphia as a way to fight blight in terms of in the most areas where they were seeing heavy volumes of vacant properties. It basically requires that vacant properties are required to have functioning doors and windows. As most of you guys may think inside the back of your mind is, don't most properties have functioning doors and windows? What you start to realize is when properties are starting to get abandoned and they're left behind and windows start to shatter and things of that nature, banks tend to just board them up. And if properties get boarded up, they affect the surrounding properties. They affect them through property values, they affect them through aesthetics, and they also attract crime. So my goal is to introduce this into the township as a proactive mechanism to make sure that we are protecting surrounding property values by making sure that we have a requirement that banks can't just come here and board up properties, or property owners, when windows are broken or shatters, can't just board up properties. They have to make sure they have functioning doors and windows. Also, along with this ordinance, it requires that vacant properties be inspected on a monthly basis. It requires that if the property is left vacant, it leaves information for whoever is the property manager of that property to information be posted in the door. So it helps with if there's something going on with the property and we need to get in contact with someone, we can just call a number and say, hey, the grass is high, or hey, this happened. And it will help not only code enforcement, it will help public safety as well, especially with public safety Director Martin's initiative for looking for quality of life issues. So, with this type of ordinance here in Susquehanna Township, we will be taking a tremendous step in adding another tool in the toolbox to fight code enforcement for code enforcement. So, if you guys have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Actually, I do, if I could, Mr. President. Mr. Johnson, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. I really appreciate this ordinance, especially. I know there's a property along Union Deposit Road that you've been working on for a while. Would this help in your efforts to straighten out the situation in that?
Yes. And what it was, and we just found out that property was actually just sold. So we have a new owner, and we can kind of address that from that angle now that the property has changed hand. But in that particular example, what we're able to do is have a ordinance that says, hey, while this property is vacant, while this property is, it's basically a requirement that it has to be secured, and you have to go about securing the property in the proper manner. And by securing it with proper doors and functioning windows, it will make the rest of the surrounding properties in that area, more aesthetically pleasing.
And a blue tarp would not constitute
exactly.
Thank you very much.
I actually had one question. The only thing, Officer Johnson, that I had a question about really is within 30 miles too small an area? For example, for people to manage a property, like, you could, I remember I've known people who manage properties and they live, maybe 40, 50 miles away, within an hour's drive. Mm-hmm. And so that was my only concern. Was the 30 miles, was that adopted from the Philadelphia ordinance, or is that something that maybe we could look at if there's
that's something that we're definitely flexible on. My whole idea of it is just making sure that if an emergency was to happen, that they're in some type of reachable distance, right, and a realistic distance where you're able to inspect the property once a month. So 50 miles, 30 miles, that's all negotiable.
I was thinking maybe 50, mm-hmm, like an hour away. I think that's not too arduous, mm-hmm, but that was my only concern. I think the initiative is excellent. So kudos to you and to Chief Martin for spearheading this, and really it can have terribly deleterious effects on an area, a block, and property values surrounding areas. So again, this is wonderful. It's an excellent initiative. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and one thing I always tell people about fighting blight is you just need to have as many tools in the toolbox as possible. Some things work against some property owners, and some things don't. But if you equip yourself with, the proper hammer, proper wrench, proper screwdriver, you're bound to, fix the problem.
Good job. Any other questions? Thank you, nephew Tom.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Chief, did you have anything to add on that?
I'm just his backup.
Okay. You're a great wingman.
President, if the
Mr.
board
Foreman.
wishes to proceed, we would have to advertise for a notice of intent
Okay.
to adopt.
And there is no language at this point, draft or otherwise, right?
There is draft language. I drafted a draft ordinance. I have to say it was one of the easiest things I've ever drafted because the health officer, Mr. Johnson, gave me the complete draft, and I only had to change a couple words. So he
That will
went
be
pretty far
reflected in the
beyond
bill.
He went pretty far beyond his job duties and put it within the parameters of my abilities.
But I mean, in terms of tweaking it along the lines of what Commissioner Fleming said.
That would be section 4, Madam President. Section 4 is where you're referring to about the miles, the radius.
Right. Right, but I mean, in terms of advertising, we don't have to get down to the letter. We intend to adopt this.
Tend to adopt the draft ordinance that I think the board has seen, but I will change it from the 30 to the 50 before we advertise it. I did want to say,
If it's acceptable to everyone, I mean.
one thing I do want to say that I think in the Philadelphia ordinance, it is anything outside of the city. Now, that's a much bigger city, but still, outside of the city could be a block away for some properties. So the Health Officer Johnson was already, I think, tweaking this to make it applicable to our community.
Okay, so I'd like to make is this where we're at? I'd like to make a motion to advertise the doors and windows ordinance.
Second?
Second, any comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Can I say, when I advertise it, do you, be my intent to advertise it with 50 miles unless there's an
Right.
objection?
50 miles. Yes, an hour.
Yeah.
Aye.
Okay, and that concludes my report. Go ahead, I'm sorry. To what he was talking about.
The draft ordinance, the draft ordinance, Commissioner Schubert, property owners, in the ordinance, it was within 30 miles of the property that you own. You have to be, basically, as Health Officer Johnson was saying, they want owners of the property who are within a reasonable distance so they can manage it, so they can do the work to put in the acceptable coverings on windows and doors. And I just thought 30, just because of the nature of where we are, if you could live in Juliana County and you could live anywhere, presumably, but I just felt within 50 miles, maybe an hour's drive would be less arduous.
And it's not necessarily owners. You can assign a property manager to it.
Right.
So you can be an owner and own a house, because a lot of owners own houses across the nation.
My concern, and not the distance, the miles in per se, as much as this might likely happen in foreclosure situations where some bank or mortgage company in Texas own that they're going to not have to deal with this.
No, they would have to assign a property manager who is within. So they would have to pay a property manager within the radius to manage that property. And as Health Officer Johnson was saying,
every
that
property owner is
information,
responsible.
right?
But you got to have somebody within 50 miles to
That is
do the work.
reachable. That is reachable, and that information must be posted clearly on the structure or somewhere on a sign
On the property.
And you tend to see that now with banks. They'll have like a LPS, for instance, and they'll have like a small little sticker posted on there. So a lot of times if I see like a code violation, I'll call that number on the sticker, which is very, very convenient to say, hey, I like to file this violation. And they're like, okay, well, we'll put a ticket and send a notice to the bank and make sure someone else comes out here to cut the grass or whatever that violation may be. So it's about making sure we have this, necessary in writing, not as just a recommendation, but more of a requirement to do so.
I got it.
Explained it quite clear. Very good.
Okay, so we're all good?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Administration and Personnel, Commissioner Napper?
Yes, Mr. President. The Admin Personnel Committee met with representatives from HR Resolutions this week for our quarterly meeting to discuss personnel matters. This year, our employees will participate in Employee Enrichment Day, which is now being planned. Some of the programs will include performance evaluation training, communication skills training, interviewing and harassment training, and this committee will keep the board up to date with the progress report of our works. Mr. President, this ends my report.
Very good. Thank you. Napper. Police, Commissioner Engel's not here. Commissioner Johnson, do you have anything?
I have no report.
Thank you. Fire and EMS, Commissioner Fleming?
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Recreation, Commissioner Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. President. The Susquehanna Township Baseball Association will have opening day on April 18th at McNaughton Park. The program begins at 10 a.m. The summer program, day camp and playground, will open on June 15th. Day camp will return to Thomas Holtzman Elementary School. The Recreation Department will open a new playground at Stabler Park, located in the First Ward. Okay. And also, please go to the township website to download registration packets and view additional information. And finally, the Recreation Department, in partnership with Central Pennsylvania Blood Bank, will be hosting a blood drive on May 29th from 3 to 7 p.m. in the Susquehanna Room, lower level of the township building. To date, 47 pints of blood have been collected, which could service 147 patients. So I want to thank everyone for that. And since we are on recreation, I'd like to take an opportunity to introduce our new recreation board advisory, because we didn't have one for a while, in the third ward, Ms. Arlene Prentice. Just stand up and say hi. And I just want to thank you, and Ms. Arlene is a longtime third ward resident. I'm not going to shout out what year she graduated, even though she's been yelling it out. But she was born here. She was born in Edgemont, raised in Edgemont, and currently lives in Edgemont. And I want to thank you so much for agreeing to be the third ward Recreation Department representative. Thank you. And Mr. President, that concludes my report.
Thank you. And
Vice President Johnson, is that a motion to approve?
I'm sorry. Yes, I apologize. I do apologize.
a motion to approve Arlene Prentice as the Recreation Advisory Board member from the third ward.
Second.
And it's been seconded. Do we have any comment? Well, I would. Arlene, you've had a long history of service in Susquehanna Township. Remember, you sat up here on the Sewer Authority when I sat in your seat, watching what the Sewer Authority was doing. And I appreciate your service and stepping back up to the plate to represent the third ward. So thank you. Any other comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Welcome aboard.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thanks, Gabby, for keeping us straight here.
That's right. Planning and Zoning, Commissioner Schubert.
Yes, Mr. President. Just a couple things to point out. We have at the Zoning and Planning, we have another side committee that's meeting with the property owners for Susquehanna Marketplace. They had a special request to meet with an ad hoc committee that consists of myself, Commissioner Robarczyk, Solicitor Foreman, and Frank Klemnico, Kerry Wilson, to at least hear their plea, hear their case, that they're looking for reduced parking requirements, and so we're going to hear their argument. I'm not so sure that personally that would work, but it's to bring up to date. The other thing is, you see on the agenda that the wireless facilities regulation assessment, we did apply for a free assessment, and they came back with a proposal And Gary, you can take it from here. You have the proposal.
Right. What I did at the direction of the board was I contacted the Tri-County Planning Commission. In turn, they had a representative from Mr. Cohen's law firm contact me after I sent them a copy of our current wireless communications ordinance. Their take of it was, yes, it needs to be revised. And with that, they sent a proposal to revise that. The cost of that proposal would be based on how many people participate in the final, the final review and the final development of an ordinance for each municipality. In speaking with you, Commissioner Schubert, you suggested perhaps this is something that the Planning Commission may want to discuss.
Yeah, I think,
I
know,
that's-
again, our planning chairman, Frank Lebnico, had mentioned to me that there's other resources available to us in this area. So I want to at least, bring it to their attention. If he has better resources that we could call upon, we might be able to do it for significantly less money.
That's well taken. So what we can do, if that's the wish of the board, is I could have Mr. Rohr present this analysis to the Planning Commission for their review.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you'd like me to do?
Good. Thank you.
Commissioners?
And you have something you wanted to add?
No, I agree.
So, Michael, it's in your packets. It's what I placed in the packets for review. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. President, that concludes my report from the planning.
Okay. And I would just like to thank you, Commissioner Schubert, and Vice President Johnson, and of course, Commissioner Napper, for taking part in interviews that led to a very great selection for our building codes officer to replace the late Al Wrightstone. He's in the audience tonight. His name is Joe Vida. And among his many qualifications, he was a compadre of Cornelius Johnson when he was working with the city of Harrisburg as well. So we stole two. Should we go for three? Cover your ears, Mayor Papenfus.
Yeah.
I don't want to get embarrassed.
I know, right?
Provided you want to say hello.
You're welcome to say a few words, but I got to say at the outset,
Welcome
you're
aboard,
qualified
Joe.
out the wazoo, but in my eyes, you're most qualified because you went to school with my sister at Bishop McDevitt High School.
Go McDevitt.
That's right.
Thank you. I'm honored to and privileged to be here and to work for Susquehanna Township, and I will do my very best to be your best building codes official. And I thank you for accepting me.
Thanks, Joe. We look forward to it.
Welcome aboard, sir.
Thank you.
See you Monday morning.
Yes, sir.
Bright and early.
You know why I did.
Okay, moving on to bids and agreements. Mr. Myers, we have a memorandum of understanding,
Right.
if I understand.
Would you explain this, Bob, exactly what this is?
my understanding.
Something that-
This is very simply, Mr. President, board members, it's a memorandum of understanding between Tri-County Regional Planning Commission and the Township regarding the Tri-County Planning Commission's Regional Growth Management Plan, which they have adopted several years ago. And what they're requesting is that each municipality in the Tri-County area that they serve enter into this memorandum of understanding to develop the concurrence with the growth management plan. And it's certainly a good planning practice. It's something that is done in many areas of the state, and it just formalizes the relationship between Tri-County and the township insofar as the adherence to the growth management plan and the township. As we grow and as we look at our ordinances, subdivision, land development, and zoning ordinances, to be able to make sure that they're consistent with the growth management plan, and I would recommend its adoption.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion, officially a motion that we adopt the memorandum of understanding with the Tri-County Planning Commission.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comment?
I have a question, and this is, I think this is due mostly to my inexperience, actually. I read, several times I read the MOU, but I don't know, what are the main tenets and sort of what are we held to
in complying with the regional growth management plan? What do we have to do or not do in order to comply, basically?
The main tenets are really to make the township and other municipalities that enter into the memorandum of understanding aware of the growth management plan. So as ordinances are written and as the planning processes in the municipalities proceed, that they're consistent with the plan. It's more of a it's not nothing that's cast in stone. It's more of an awareness type of situation.
Like a guidance, almost?
Guidelines.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
The municipalities are required by the municipalities planning code anyway to be consistent with their county's comprehensive plan.
Correct.
Our plan is consistent with the county's comprehensive plan. That's our zoning ordinance needs to be consistent with our comprehensive plan, which is consistent with the county's comprehensive plan. So it's a system of checks and balances to make sure there's consistency and overseeing.
So this is an outgrowth of that.
It's an outgrowth of that, but what it doesn't do is supersede our ordinances.
Okay.
In other words, our subdivision and land development ordinances are actually how the township is growing, planned to grow, and based on the comprehensive plan of the township, which, as Manager Meyer says, is consistent with the county's comprehensive plan.
We're already doing many of the things that are called for here. For example, one of the things that they specifically mentioned is communicating with other municipalities that are affected by growth in our municipality.
Okay.
That's already in our ordinance.
Okay. All right. Yeah, those are a couple of those specifics of what I was looking for. I mean, because it's a lot of it is just,
We're memorializing things that we're already doing, but it's a good idea.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other comments? I hate to say this, but did we vote on this?
Made a motion and a second.
Yeah, motion second, yeah.
Yeah.
Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 2 is the Dauphin County Infrastructure Bank. Commissioner Mr. Myers.
Right. Been working with the Dauphin County Economic Development for some months now in regards to getting a loan from them for some much-needed infrastructure work in the uptown area of Susquehanna Township, which is mostly Ward 1. And the infrastructure in that area is some of the oldest, if not the oldest infrastructure in our municipality. And what the Dauphin County Infrastructure Bank does, and it's one of its first of its kind in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, allows them to leverage their liquid fuels money in the form of 0.5% loans to municipalities to do infrastructure work. In this case, we're talking roads, curbing, sewer work, storm sewer work, much needed work. And I would encourage the board to accept this loan and to proceed with the next steps and to do these infrastructure improvements uptown.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to apply for this loan.
It's to accept it.
Accept the loan. It's a great rate, 0.5%.
Yeah, Mr. President, this is a comment, and I guess I wanted to take the opportunity to commend our county commissioners who aren't here tonight for starting such an infrastructure bank. This is a relatively new creature, am I right, Bob?
It's the first one in the state, and Dauphin County can be very proud that it.
Right, and
there was a lot of work that went into it.
Our 3 county commissioners have done a tremendous job in creating this tool for local government. And as Gary can attest, it's at 0.5% interest is almost free money. So I guess we're going to be one of the first ones to get this loan, Bob.
It'd be one of the first and second one, and one of the largest amounts also.
Yeah, no, this is great. Good, really good stuff for the county and for us, and happy to support it. And
I just want to make a quick comment also. I want to thank, I guess, our manager. I'm not sure who applied for it, but
It was a cooperative effort, and with President Lynch and working with Christopher Bauer from HRG, along with the county commissioners, along with staff from Dauphin County Economic Development. I mean, I really, really want to see this work done. It's much needed.
Wow, well, I know, I certainly thank you, and I'm sure Commissioner Robarczyk thanks you also, but I want to ask, so when will the work start? I'm not talking for you over there, Jody.
That's all right.
When will the work start?
Yeah.
Not soon enough. I would hope that we would see work maybe start toward the end of this year, Bob?
It could easily start towards the end of this year. This is really an extension of the work, some of the work that was done before in the First Ward area and other parts of the township to improve our drainage infrastructure. And some of the work that will be done in the First Ward will involve both storm sewers and sanitary sewers because they are very closely related in that area.
Okay.
So hopefully by the end of this year and going into 2016 and beyond.
Well, thank you.
Mr. President?
Yes.
This, as Manager Myers indicated, this is much needed, and if you're not familiar with the First Ward, you don't live there, what you may not know, in addition to flooding from the river, what we experienced in 2011 was flooding from rain. Never mind the river. We had a lot of flooding in the ward just from runoff because the age of the sanitary sewers and the size and the placement, et cetera, or lack thereof, there was nowhere for the water to go. So people's homes, their basements and their yards were flooded with rainwater before the river ever came up. And we took out a bond in 2011. There was a lot of engineering, surveys, studies done, but no work has been done yet. So this has been long awaited, and I'm sure folks are anxious to see this happen. So thank you for your work on it, and I thank the board for their support and the county, and Manager Myers, of course.
You're done.
Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
I too am very, very supportive of this. I do have a question, though. We're talking about sewers, and in my ward, there's 130 homes actually that will need to be hooked up to sewers within the next few years. And I'm curious as to whether this would have any impact on our ability, perhaps in the future, to go to pursue a similar loan. How would that work?
No, sorry. No, of course. At that rate, 0.5%, we'd be ridiculous. And I hope other municipalities aren't watching, but we'd be ridiculous not to be very aggressive after that.
Yeah, we're on the ground level of this, which is
Yes.
really good for our municipality.
Is there kind of a revolving credit? So as we pay it off, we can keep applying for more?
Does applying now have any impact on?
It's a drawdown. We draw it down as we need it. Correct? It's a drawdown.
It's a drawdown loan. You draw down as you need it. You don't take the entire principal sum at one time. You draw it down as you need it.
So we're only paying
And then-
interest as we need it.
and you're only paying interest as you
Best
need
of
it.
both worlds.
There's no prepayment penalty if the township were in a position to prepay it early. And as projects get done from this particular loan, you can certainly apply for additional monies. Because there is a lot of money in the Dauphin County Infrastructure Bank pool because of the work of the county commissioners and the fact that the liquid fuels funds were utilized to fund or leverage the Dauphin County Infrastructure Bank proceeds.
And this work also would, it sounds like, because of the storm sewer work, Ward 1 is in the Paxton Creek watershed, correct?
Actually, it's
Island Run.
in the Susquehanna River. Everything goes to the river.
No, it's not.
Oh, no?
It's peripherally, the eastern end of the ward is in Paxton Creek because of Wildwood Lake, but from 6th Street west, basically the drainage is towards the river.
Okay.
Because when the river comes up, it comes up into the basements. But what was being, as Commissioner Robarczyk was referring to, the situation we had in 2011 was the river never flooded, but quite a few properties and streets in Ward 1 did flood because of the street flooding. We didn't have the capacity to handle that influx of water. And I know I spent much more time in the rain in the first ward in 2011 than I wanted to spend.
Yeah.
It was horrendous. It
And
really was.
but the project will help with runoff, correct?
So that's the end.
Okay.
Yeah, the storm sewer aspect.
Excellent.
And there was flooding from the river, too, and there was flooding from the sanitary sources.
And most of it was, like you said, in the
People's
streets.
sanitary sewers were coming back into people's homes
horrible.
as well as the river. But you don't often think about the fact that rain runoff is going into
Yeah.
people's homes because there's nowhere for it to go.
Right, it was bad.
Okay. Action on ordinances, resolutions, subdivisions, et cetera. This is not a typo, right? It's Flamingo Warehouse?
We never voted on
Wait, we have to vote on that loan.
acceptance.
Didn't we vote on the loan?
I seconded, and Tom,
Please vote on that
Tom
acceptance.
seconded it, and then I started yapping away, and we never did vote on it.
Yapping.
Hey,
Yap,
I we didn't use that legalese.
Come on now.
Any other
That's
comments?
Pittsburghese.
Pittsburgh, Stowe Rocks.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, and the first.
Yins were good to pass that.
Yins. What Kettler?
Yins.
Kettler's my
Yins did a
parachute.
good job.
Where we at?
Good?
Hey, Mike.
All right.
There we go.
All right. First ward, the Flamingo Warehouse. It's on 3465 North 6th Street. It's a preliminary final subdivision plan to subdivide Lot 1 into 2 tracts, then to add Lot 3 to existing Lot number 2. All lots are under the same ownership. Property is zoned industrial and was recommended for approval by the Planning Commission contingent on 3 waivers. Waive the requirement for existing and proposed contours at vertical intervals of 5 feet or less. Waive the requirement for a final erosion and sedimentation control plan. Lastly, waive the requirement for a final stormwater management plan.
This is on 6.
Board's pleasure.
I'll make a motion to approve the subdivision plan.
I think we have to approve the waivers first.
I'll make a motion to approve the waivers.
Yeah, all
Okay.
three of them.
Okay, it's been moved to,
Second.
for the waivers and seconded. Any comment?
Yes, can I ask a question? Why, because of the water runoff in the first ward, why would we,
There's no construction taking place. It's just a lot line shift.
okay, okay,
No 0% increase in stormwater.
gotcha, okay. Just curious.
Good question.
Any other comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Waivers are granted.
The Planning Commission attached one condition, and that was for the concrete monuments to be installed or financial security provided prior to approval.
I'll make a motion to approve the plan with the condition.
Moved and seconded. Any comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rohr. Unfinished business.
Published reports, sir.
Published reports. Okay. Reports of staff. Manager.
We have 2 traffic studies I think Chief Martin, Director of Public Safety Martin, would like to report on.
Members of the board? Do the easier one first. A traffic study for Cloverfield Northway Road, which is in Witchwood Hills. It's really just a matter of housekeeping. It's some roads in there that haven't really needed addressed, but this came across one of our officers who recommended it. It recommends a yield sign on Northway Road, and I concur with this recommendation. And it does? Okay. So, has my
Is there a motion
recommendation.
to approve the report and draft an ordinance?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Second study was requested for the potential of speed humps on Far Green Road between Linglestown Road, North Galen Road. Speed humps are not permitted on this roadway due to being a steep incline as well as an emergency route. However, the study recommends curbing to reduce speed, removing the except right turn at Lakeside and Galen Roads, and I would add to this that yellow lines and white end lines be repainted through that stretch of Far Green Road, as well as traffic calming of 25 mph and slow being painted on the road. So my recommendation is I'm I'll leave curbing to the board. My recommendation is to remove the accept right turn for Far Green motorists northbound at Lakeside and Galen, and repaint the yellow and white end lines, as well as the traffic calming of 25 mph and slow on the roadway where we have at some other locations. So I think the only thing that requires an ordinance is the removal of the, and again, the removal of the accept right turn essentially causes them to stop. And the recommendation was, at this point, that would probably be in our best interest.
Current ordinance calls for a stop if you're turning left, but not if you're turning right.
Or going straight.
So-
Going straight.
Yeah.
Or if you're going straight, you're straight.
Stop, yes.
But if you turn right, you don't. So we're going to add that additional as a additional direction of the stop sign. So that requires an ordinance. The rest of it does not.
Second.
Okay, what do we move, though?
We move what he said.
Removal of the.
Yeah, but
Already said we
you also include curbs in there.
That was, it's a recommendation.
Removal of the sign,
It's a recommendation.
the calming of 25 mph slow. And was there another thing, Chief?
Yellow and
The
white.
yellow repainting.
Repaint the yellow and white
Yellow
end
and
lines, and
white.
certainly Mr. Dietrich and his crew, as weather and time allows. Yeah.
Who made the first? That's your motion?
That's my motion.
Oh, and it's been seconded?
It's been seconded.
Okay. Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
That's all I have.
At what point will we need to do anything with, if at all, with curbing?
And my question is, who bears the cost? Potentially.
I don't know is my answer to both.
Okay.
It's something probably just to consider for the future.
It's a township road. I believe so.
That's who's going to bear.
Well, curb and sidewalk is within the right-of-way, but it's, by ordinance, it's a responsibility of the property owner.
See, that's
Because,
my
the
question.
curb and sidewalk in front of my home is is on my property, but with a township right-of-way over top of it. But it is my responsibility to maintain that curb and sidewalk.
Well, there's none existing.
That's true.
So whose responsibility is it
Well,
to?
again, if you look at the
construct
direct
it?
interpretation of the first-class township code, the governing body of any first-class township in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania can require at any time curb and sidewalk to be placed on any property at the expense of the property owner.
So that's obviously not something we're going to address tonight.
That's correct, sir.
And I don't think the board needs to. It was through the study, and I understand the recommendation, but I think we can do some other things, as been approved here tonight, that we can make a difference.
Right.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Anything else, Mr. Myers?
No, sir, thank you.
Okay, and Mr. Foreman?
I have a couple things for the board. The first thing is a request for partial tax exoneration at 4417 Far Green Road. This is a residential property, and in April of last year, April 13th, there was a fire which completely destroyed the residence. It's the residence of Mary and Stan Custer. Mr. Custer unfortunately passed on in November of 2014. Now Mary is asking that we exonerate municipal taxes, not on the land, but on the building, from May 1 through December 31 of last year. And I would ask if the board would agree to that exoneration. So, we need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Okay. Any comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And the second item I have is the board is aware that property in Dauphin County, which is fails to pay, or which taxes are not paid, is subject to a tax sale. If the property does not sell at a tax sale, the property is then listed for a judicial sale where the property can be sold free and clear. And if nobody bids on the property, or no acceptable bid is entered at either of the sales, then it goes into the Dauphin County Tax Repository. That property can then be sold by the county with the consent of the taxing bodies. for a bid of $500 or more. We have 3 parcels in the 3rd Ward. The only one with a listed address is 2308 Highland Avenue, but there's another one next door to that, and then one next door on Columbia Avenue. The 3 parcels, each one of them has we've received an offer on each one of them for $587.50. Dauphin County's accepted the bids, and Susquehanna Township School Board has accepted the bids. So the property will be sold to Mr. J.C. Hardy of Harrisburg for redevelopment in the event that the Board of Commissioners accepts the bid. The advantage, of course, is that once the property is sold, the land, vacant land, immediately goes on the tax rolls, and that the person offering to buy it indicates they're going to develop the land. When they develop that, of course, their improvements also go on the tax rolls. So if the board pleases, I ask you to vote on the 3 offers for the 3 parcels together.
I make a motion that we accepted 3 offers.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I will advise the tax assessment office, and I thank the board.
Thank you, Mr. Foreman. School Board, Commissioner Fleming.
Thank you, Mr. President. Community meet and greet for the new Susquehanna Township District Superintendent, Dr. Todd Klein, is going to be held on April 22nd rather, from 6 to 8 in the library at the Susquehanna Township High School. Parents, residents of the township, township officials, service club members, and those who have business in the township, district volunteers, and others are invited to attend, and refreshments will be served. More than 400 students, parents, and staff attended the Faculty Talent Show at Susquehanna Township High School on March 18th, and a record-breaking $1,700 was raised from ticket sales for student scholarships. The Faculty Talent Show and Chocolate Festival, which was in conjunction, was coordinated by the High School Parents Association. Students in 3rd, 8th, and 11th grades are preparing to take PSSA examinations, and the 1st and 2nd graders will soon take the Terra Nova tests. And on behalf of the Board of Commissioners, we remind our students and children to get plenty of sleep before their test days to ensure optimal performance, and eat a good breakfast. That helps. And finally, the Sarah Linda Muth PTO Book Fair runs from April 13th through the 17th, and the Education Fair at Sarah Linda Muth is April 16th at 7 p.m. Mr. President, that concludes my report. And, oh, I'm sorry, really quickly, one other thing. And I would like to thank School Board Member John Dietrich, who is in attendance tonight. Thanks for being here, John.
Mr. President, can I put Bob Reich on the spot for a moment? And since we're talking about the school, Bob, could you come up and tell us about the was it the 5K paint? I don't know. The only thing I know is I got paint on my car still, but could you tell me? Yeah. Can you tell us about that? I didn't see it on my report. Yeah.
On Saturday, I think it was March 28th, when it was snowing, the high school students from Susquehanna Township High School, obviously, did a 5K run at Veterans Park. There were 185 participants. They raised over $4,300 for 4 Diamonds. It was fun. The weather was terrible, but it was fun. They ran in the snow. I'd never seen that many different colors of snow at one time, but everybody had a good time. And it was called a color run, and what they do is at certain stations they throw the powder in the air and the kids run through it, and they had a great time. Yes. So next year if we do it, I'd like to see some of you guys come out. I'll join you, I promise.
All right.
Thank you.
It was cold out there that day. It was. I was there.
I want to thank Bob, and one reason I wanted to highlight that is, that's just one example of the community coming together, and also I want to take an opportunity to thank our Susquehanna Township finest for being out there. Also, we had our police; they were on Veterans Field, and it was although the weather was crappy, we had a pretty nice time. Okay, and that concludes my comments.
Thank you, Commissioner. And Commissioner. Authority, Commissioner Sanderson.
Thank you. No report.
Thank you. Indian Wheels, Commissioner Schubert.
Again, can't say enough about Indian Wheels, and if you're 60 plus and need a ride, you're welcome to call in and get a ride. But more so, you don't even have to live in Susquehanna Township if you want to volunteer. You want to be a driver or dispatcher, you can call in and get involved with the program. It's an all-volunteer program, does a lot of good for a lot of people. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner. Shade Tree, Commissioner Barczyk.
No report, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Barczyk, Mr. Vida will be the new staff liaison to the Shade Tree Commission. I've already informed him of that, and he's excited about that. So.
Lucky.
Come grow with us.
Lucky.
The new slogan.
Lucky. Communications. Mr. Schubert, did you have anything?
Yes, I do. Sir, Mr. President, I'm happy to report that we're finishing up the spring-summer edition. Bob and staff, I think we've completed our second draft. I'll send around a draft for everyone to review in case they find any glaring mistakes. But I think, again, a lot of congratulations to Bob and Jan for putting in a good newsletter together. I think, Bob, it should be out before the end of the month, early May, maybe?
Yes, around the end of the month, early May.
Yeah, so that's good. It's been going quite well. The other thing is we had a meeting, our communication committee with Commissioner Pine, and we met to discuss a proposal from our videographer, and they're going to provide us with a link to YouTube so that our good meetings could be shown right on our website directly 1 week after the meeting's over. You'll be able to go right to the website and view it at your leisure, like anytime you want, as often as you want.
Just might take you up on that.
And that includes my report.
Burn off that button.
Yeah.
Okay, Human Relations, Commissioner Barczyk.
We have a vacancy right now on the Human Relations Commission due to a resignation. So we are actively seeking someone. If you're interested, you can submit a letter of interest to our Township Manager, Gary Myers. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Ray Talley for her service, the year and a half that she was on the board. It's much appreciated. I understand that people have busy lives and need to move on, but we do appreciate it. Commissioner comments. Anybody wish to say anything else?
Mr. President, if I do have a comment, or at least I'm using this as an opportunity to make comment. At our last meeting, Commissioner Barczyk informed us that the school board now has a regular workshop session, and she sort of encouraged folks to attend and get involved with it. And I didn't do that yet, but as the third vice president of the Central Pennsylvania Township Commissioners Association, I checked with some of our fellow townships throughout Central Pennsylvania. It turns out every one of them has a regular workshop meeting. And it seems like something we should probably, get started here in Susquehanna for the Township Board itself. I think it's an opportunity to explore issues in more depth, get into a lot of budgetary. A lot of the other townships told me there's no way they could have do budgets without doing the workshops. So it's a way to open things up, get more people involved. And they generally have said what they've done is anything that before it goes on the regular business meeting is handled at the workshop session. It's sort of an informational type of opportunity. So I'd like to make a motion that we start doing workshop sessions here in Susquehanna Township as well to get that sharing of information, more depth, more studies, so on and so forth. So we already have the second meeting in a month scheduled, so that part's already taken care of.
Let's.
Was that a motion? I'll second it.
Okay. So the motion is what? To have it?
To start having workshop sessions where we would put, stuff on the workshop. The workshop session would be used to study issues in more depth, to discuss issues in whole things with where we would only be currently allowed to have 4 commissioners attend something. We'd be able to have all 9 discuss things at a public meeting like this. It wouldn't be for business purpose. In other words, we wouldn't be passing ordinances, but we would be able to discuss the pros and cons of an upcoming vote on an ordinance.
Would that be a public meeting or an executive session?
It would have to be public.
It would have to be public, okay.
It would just be non-voting.
Yeah, but it wouldn't, we went out to, and I don't know that it would be required attendance if someone didn't want to attend, and I don't think, like, obviously we'd have to have a workshop session in December when we're on the holidays, or I don't know if you do that, John, or...
I'm pretty sure we just have, no, we actually, I believe we do have 2 meetings, and because we have a reorganization meeting in the very first week of December, so.
Right.
But I don't know that it's not a workshop meeting. So.
Right. But I think it's at least worth a try, because it's an opportunity for us to, you know, we might want to say, get into the weeds on some of these issues, and we can share things better with the 9 of us here, talking to various experts on issues, and invite the public to share their views with us. And
Mr. President?
yes.
Comment and a question combined for our solicitor. I think it's accurately been noted that there is no such thing as a workshop session. It is a public meeting, and there have been many references in the media to other municipalities that have second meetings or third meetings of the month. But I think that discussion and debate are the opposite side of the coin of deliberation, which is prohibited at a workshop meeting because deliberation implies votes. And my concern is that any such workshop very easily devolves into currents that would more appropriately be aimed at a regularly scheduled committee-based structure public meeting. You may have your thoughts on that.
I think the second meeting of the month, which we just reserved as a time that we could meet, but I believe that we do advertise it as a meeting. Yes, we advertise it as a regular meeting. Yeah. So if we held that second meeting of the month that we have a schedule for, but that we don't normally meet, if we did meet at that time, the meeting could conduct business just as your regular meeting does. In fact, in times in the past when we had a great deal of business, we used to have 2 legislative meetings a month. Whether we call it a workshop meeting or not, it's not really a workshop meeting. It's a full public meeting of the board.
So we could take votes?
You could take votes.
Oh, okay.
At that meeting.
Okay.
And again, I'm not saying that I guess maybe I misunderstood Commissioner Saunderson, but I guess I'm proposing that we develop that quote-unquote workshop public meeting more as a workshop, and don't add to the agenda things that, and let, obviously, you know, nothing's cut and granted if it turns out that there's something that we absolutely need to vote on because of the time constraints of something. But I think that, you know, we could use the time element and really not add to the agenda voting issues, but give us an opportunity to dwell into a little more in depth of some of the issues that we do deal with. Such as the budget.
Mr. President, I think it's pretty well established that any agenda in a public meeting, and that's what these meetings are, they're regularly advertised, regularly scheduled meetings, are not workshops, and they are not different than any other regularly scheduled meetings. They require agendas, and any discussion that leads to a vote constitutes an official action of the township. Now, the board has, for decades, operated under a committee structure. Everyone's invited to a committee meeting. There is only the constraint, as there is for any other municipality, of open meetings, which is no more than or one less than a quorum can attend, because otherwise it becomes a deliberative action of the municipality in question. So if there are questions to be placed on an agenda, I think that would be best reserved for our regularly scheduled meeting of the month, which we're using right now. The second meeting of the month has always historically been used for emergency purposes or for excessive workloads. To add to the committee structure by creating a workshop which isn't a workshop, which is a regularly scheduled public meeting, actually explodes the committee structure and devolves it into a free-for-all of discussion, which doesn't actually promote the agenda of the township, which is often scheduled on a regularly appearing calendar. For the budget in particular has a schedule to it, and certainly nothing prohibits any municipality from discussing the budget at any particular time, but nothing actually happens until September, October, November, when the budget is debated and finally voted upon. So I think we have to consider this very carefully. By adding to the committee structure and thereby blowing it up, we're actually eliminating the opportunity of the township to operate deliberatively. We become a committee of the whole, which is not how municipalities operate. And school districts operate as committees of the whole, but they operate under a completely different statewide structure. And that's my concern, that if we have a reason to meet, then it should be placed on the agenda for the second meeting of the month. To create a regularly scheduled meeting and for no reason but to bring up topics that might come to mind is counterproductive.
Mr. President, if I may?
Sure.
I have a few points I'd like to make. The school district does have committees. It's not a free-for-all. They'd have an agenda for their meetings that I've attended. If I'm just bringing up the school district since Commissioner Schubert referred to that. It's not a free-for-all by any means. And they do have committees. And their committees report and at these meetings and at their regular meetings, and they discuss things. Another point, we're talking about, well, commissioners are free to attend committee meetings. And earlier today, we were invited, the group as a whole, to attend a budget committee meeting. Well, there are, as long as there's only 4 commissioners, we all know there's 3 commissioners on the budget committee. So out of the 9 of us, 1 of us can attend a budget commissioner meeting. And as the past budget chair, I was in that position, and it was a circus because I had commissioners requesting to attend a budget committee meeting. And I said, well, we already have 1 other commissioner coming, so you can't come. And then I'd be in an awkward position of turning commissioners away. So to say commissioners, the 9 of us can attend a budget committee meeting is really disingenuous because that really can't happen. And I know because I sat in that seat. And that, you know, this offers an opportunity, especially when it comes budget time, to discuss it. All the other municipalities do it. Wait, excuse me. I have a few more points. If I can talk without being interrupted as everybody else has, I'd appreciate it. No offense. And to say, and this happens a lot in government, to say this is the way we've always done it, that's why we're going to do it like that, is the absolute worst reason to not do something, because we've always done it that way. That's the worst reason to not do something, because we've always done it this way. I think it would open things up and we'd have a lot more time for discussion. These meetings would possibly be shorter. From what I've seen at the school district, that's what's happened. I've been going to those meetings for years. And when they started having, and by the way, I wasn't prepared to speak on any of this tonight, but when Commissioner Schubert brought it up, it opened the floodgates for me because it all seems to make sense. When the school district started having these workshop sessions, I noticed that their meetings went a lot faster. They weren't there till 11, 12 o'clock at night because they had already had presentations prior to that. They'd already asked questions. They didn't vote on anything, but they were able to get presentations on things they were going to vote on, and they were able to ask questions. And then when they had their meeting, they were, of course, still free to ask questions, their business meeting, but it went a lot faster. There was no rush, to get things through because the clock was ticking. And I think it would be great because again, when I was budget chair, I had suggested that we open up our budget meetings to the public when we were going through the budget process. I mean, our Citizens Budget Committee, those people are fantastic, but guess what? If we opened it up to the entire public, those people could still come to the meetings and contribute. There would be nothing to preclude our existing Citizens Budget Committee members from still participating while opening it up to everybody else. I mean, the way it works now, you appoint 1 person from your ward and that's it. So you got 9 people in the township that get an intimate look at the budget before it's passed. Most municipalities around here, they open it up to everybody and they have a discussion about it. But I won't go on. I could say a lot more, but I won't. Those are the main points I have to make.
Commissioner Schubert?
Yeah. Anyway, I get, she took some of the points, but I get the reason I didn't come up with this in a vacuum. I guess when I was interested because of what the school board was doing, but when I checked with Susquehanna Township, Lower Susquehanna, Lower Paxton, East Pennsboro, and I even checked with the president of Little Millersburg Borough, and every single one of them has they call workshop session, or they call it 2 meetings a month, one in which they dwell more on informational, presentation type things, and the other one deals with primarily voting on issues. And those things, I don't know how we could have operated without this. That's what they reported back to me. So it wasn't something I said, hey, let me think this up. It was the curiosity of what the school board was doing that led me to start asking around, and seems like everybody does it but us.
So because other people have meetings, we should have a meeting too. Here's what I would suggest. I hear you, and I especially hear you, Jody, on the budget, because we've been through this many times. And, I've actually talked about a legislature-type process in terms of doing the budget. And I'd like to see that happen, where each member, each department head comes and defends their budget. But I'd like to, and I'm not opposed to the idea of workshop, if we could define what workshop is, but to just spring it out there.
Well, we have a motion on the floor. I call the question.
I understand that. I understand that.
Call the question, there can't be any more debate, but do you want to do that for the other members?
That flies in the face of workshop spirit. So call the question.
No, what, I'm sorry, I'm be honest.
Well, when she calls the question, it's like saying,
It's over.
yeah, for lack of a better
Can I
term,
make a
everybody shut up,
parliamentary
let's vote.
Parliamentary inquiry.
That's it.
You don't have a second to call the question, so we can continue the debate.
Mr. Pine.
Have we called the question, or?
There's no second.
The question requires
Okay,
a second.
okay.
They vote on the call.
Okay, thank you. I have spoken offline with Commissioner Schubert, and I'm generally supportive of this concept, and I appreciate what Commissioner Rabarchik has to say, and agree with most of what she had to say, in fact. I wondered, however, just in terms of details, as to whether we might consider this an every other month possibility. I don't know if how the commissioners would feel about that concept, to perhaps, or as a needed, or, in some way. Again, I am supportive of understanding that it's an actual meeting, but it gives us a workshop type of opportunity for discussion. I am supportive of it, but I'd like to wonder if we might massage the timing or the specifics on it.
Well, I mean, even if we did it every other month, it would certainly be a lot more often than we do it now.
Right.
And it would give us an opportunity to maybe say walk or creep walk, before we run. And maybe the more we get into it, and if we really like it, say, hey, you know what, we need to do it every month or not. But maybe your idea, Tom, is a good one. At least start off with every other month and give us more of a time to build up a series of presentations and issues. And by the time we get into the budget end of it, we'll be that could be like our big part of the year to use it for the budget. So, I mean, I'll be willing to amend my motion that we have these workshop, or the second meeting be utilized for this purpose every other month.
Well, instead of winging it, what I would like to propose that we do, and we're free to take the vote if we want to do that, but is to come up with a solid proposal, define what workshop is, define what kind of subjects we're going to talk about. We're not going to be taking a vote, but we're going to be doing X, Y, and Z. The budget's an easy one. Budget's an easy one to wrap my head around.
Right.
This is brand new to me. Huh?
I don't mean to interrupt you. That's because you're in a meeting. Yeah, the budget. You all. I'm not even going to go down. I'm not going to get on that road. And I don't mean to interrupt you, President Lynch. I'm not going to talk about the budget because you all know how I feel about the budget. I don't like the process that we use, and I say that, and I don't say it. I say it all the time, so I'm not going to talk about that. But I will take an opportunity. Since I cut you off, I apologize. I really do. I will take an opportunity to say I think it's important that we do. I think what you suggested is important. I don't feel that way now, but there was a time that I did feel like we didn't get enough information, and we only have a small window to get the information. And like I said, I don't feel as much that way now, but I think it's important that we have an opportunity to talk about some of these things instead of we see them here, and yeah, we get this a few days ahead of time. We get it a few days ahead of time, and we got to call. If I have a question, I got to call Gary, but I'm thinking maybe if we can come in and we look at the agenda already and we sit and talk about any of it, talk about some of the things that we were talking about today. I guess, I don't know if I could talk about it out here because we talk about it in the executive session, but some of the things that we had a question that we were asking that we needed a little bit more information on, some of those things. I think it's a good idea, and I'm not saying that I'm stuck with we need to do it twice a month. I'm not saying that. I think it's a good idea for us to do it. That's just my personal opinion. Or as needed?
As needed.
I don't know what or as needed mean.
Well, if one of the commissioners would decide that I think it's time for us to have that meeting, or like Tom, I like the ideas that Tom came up with, every other month, or as needed. I would just, and Frank came up with the idea, let's have it in writing. Let's put everything that we want to do. And
so
then
when we come
we'll bring
in,
it.
right.
Instead of just voting tonight. We just came up with the decision to do something like this. Mike just came. Why do I have to vote on it tonight?
Right, but you know, I get you, Stevens. I think that the whole discussion almost lends itself as to why this discussion came up. Because we can't have this discussion back there.
Right.
And if you go by the normal agenda, it doesn't fit. So then what you do, he said, let me get on the phone and talk to Tom. Oh, then let me get on the phone and talk to Steve. Let me see what Mona's doing. And you spend way more time because you can't get 9 people together or more than 4 people together to have any kind of discussion about anything. And so you could do things like, unless you're on a committee, like Jody said, if there's a committee structure as 2 people, 2 people, 2 people, but if you're not one of those 2 people, well, then you don't know what's going on. And it's not a big state secret, but I'd say, geez, I'd love to know a little more about what the Shade Tree Commission really does. They're going to come in and do a little 10-minute presentation on Shade Tree, then we're all going to be up to date. And a year or so back, Steve, when he first took over, he did these great things. We had to do them in executive session, but they could be workshops where the police do a presentation, maybe as part of the budget. The fire marshal does something. We talk to Bob about the rec program and the summer program, but it's all done in front of all 9 in the public and anybody who wants to come.
It wasn't done in executive session.
What's that?
Those meetings were not in executive session.
They weren't anywhere.
They were done before the executive session as a workshop for the commissioners.
As a volunteer.
They weren't done as part of executive session.
Oh, so we did do workshops then.
Right.
Well, and I agree. I mean, I'm generally supportive because I think any opportunity to shine more light on what we're doing is an excellent thing, and have, you know, maybe that increases our attendance. You know, the fact that you can maybe have it back and forth with residents, and but I also agree with President Lynch. I think we need to develop a plan and form a structure.
I agree.
You know, that we can all, and I mean, again, this is coming from someone who is supportive. We talked today.
No, right.
But to do this without a plan, I think would be irresponsible. And I also think we need to be careful. Bruce does an excellent job of briefing us on what can and cannot be done. You all are the veterans on this board. I'm still learning. But I don't want to take something that ought to be in the back of the house and bring it to the front of the house and perhaps get sued and
right.
deposed.
No, that's easy.
So
Justin, really, that's easy, and Bruce will explain. But primarily, it's back there is
personnel, litigation,
personnel and legal matters.
Right.
You know,
Real estate.
Real estate. So I mean, but again, I'm supportive. But I do agree with President Lynch. There ought to be a plan around. We ought to figure out how we're going to do this.
Can we do it in one of those work sessions? I just asked.
I didn't want to sound, you know.
That's very meta.
I didn't want to sound flip about it, but that's what I was going to suggest. Why don't we, if the board's considering this, need to have a workshop session to establish the criteria of a workshop session. It's not a bad idea.
If I can just add, again, going back to the school district, all they've done to my knowledge, is they take their regular agenda and use that as a basis. So you're not reinventing the wheel. You're discussing things, but not voting on them. And then you'll have
And we'll
special
discuss that in the
presentations
workshop.
injected.
Yeah, and the
So
county
it's-
commissioners do the same thing.
Right,
And then they come
right.
out with a consent agenda, and things go easy. And I think one of the things we've been lulled into is that there's been so much good communication among commissioners, and the committee structure does work well. Our hours don't last our meetings don't last any more than an hour. When I first got on this board, 3 and 4 hours, not uncommon. And I was the biggest proponent of a workshop session.
Well, you know what, with all
Mm-hmm.
due respect, maybe the committee system's working for you as president because you sit
You're
on
on
the
every
major
committee.
committees, you have all the information. Somebody who's on Shade Tree, I don't have access to that information. I mean, nobody's calling me up and saying, hey, this is what's going on with Budget Committee.
Okay,
I mean,
I'm all for
you
it.
know, that's,
I agree. Let's do it.
the budget
but
report
let's
is we
come
had a
up with
budget
way to do
meeting.
it.
So.
Can we do the next meeting at
Well, yeah, like Gary said, and maybe let's have our next meeting to be a open discussion on how to go forward, if you want. I mean,
Not to interject myself, but if the board wants to try having a session where you go over the same agenda but you don't vote, you can do that right now because the president can call that meeting. So you could do it and see how it works out.
But that would be a surprise, and we don't like surprises.
No, but it would be the regularly scheduled, already sunshine.
It would be the already
meeting,
sunshine
the
meeting,
fourth
because-
Wednesday of the month.
Exactly.
Right, that's the
Right, that's
If
what
you
we're
want to have a
saying. That's
meeting
what we're
other than that
proposing.
meeting,
Right.
we have to advertise it
And sunshine it.
but see, there's a lot of things, I mean, in addition to these things that aren't on the agenda, there are certain things that need to be voted on, but there's stuff that we just want to flush out, dig a little bit deeper on. But I guess when it comes right down to it, though, if we do the budget process this way, that's the best way to dig on every department, on every issue, because anywhere you spend money, you can start questioning.
And we do, and in fairness, I mean, I think Gary, and, you know, again, I don't want to add to your charge, Jody, easy for me to say because I'm on the budget committee, but if I'm not mistaken, we all get a quarterly budget. That's shared with every commissioner, so every quarter, when it's regularly done, that information is shared. And I've outside of the committee structure, taken those questions, because I've had a lot of them in the first year and a half, to Manager Myers and others if it's a programmatic question. I've done that myself because we all do get access to that information on a quarterly basis.
We do, but and I don't want to argue about this, but I say this all the time. We do. We get the information out that's already done. I mean, listen, we don't get a budget that says, listen, we pay A, B, and C, D salary. We don't get that. We don't get the budget that says we're giving somebody this raise, this person ain't getting a raise. No, we don't get that. We get the information, okay? And yes, and then if I have a question, I have to call Gary. And I think that's the part that we're trying to eliminate. We're trying to ensure that when you get the information, when you're creating your budget and Sean creates his budget, that we're all getting the same information at the same time. So we don't have to call up each other and tell each other what's going on in our committee. So we're all getting the same information. But, I've never been a proponent of how we do our budget. And as I was down at the county one time, and I saw how they do it. They have the department head, he sits down and he tells exactly what every quarter, nickel, and dime is for. Okay, and we don't get that here. Okay, so I'm saying, and I've said it before, and I'm saying it now. I think it's time for change.
Well, and case in point, Justin, you, myself, and Mona all had the same question today about something in particular regarding a statement, let's just say a report. So each of us are going to call Gary individually. We all have the same question. If you have this meeting, one person asks a question, boom, you get it done. You get all your questions out for that month. Save Gary time with phone calls and emails, I would imagine.
And I text him.
If 9 of us are calling him throughout the month.
No, that's an excellent point. And again, I'm supportive.
Just today, we all three had the same question.
No, excellent point, yes.
So what do we need to do?
Can we bring this up at our next meeting?
What are you going to do, Mr. President? How do you want to?
What do we do?
Well, my thought is, let's...
Does the motion have to be withdrawn?
No,
Current motion in the second, that's...
It can be voted up or it can be voted down.
Could amend it.
Yeah, I mean, I was willing to amend it to go to Tom's idea of every other month if we wanted to do that.
Well, let's
But,
define
I mean,
what
if
it
nothing
is.
else, we're having a great discussion. This is this kind of stuff that that, we just haven't been doing as a group.
Well, and also, the other thing, Fred's not here, too. I'd like to hear his input. I mean, I think that's
It'll be a makeup for Fred.
With all due respect, I want to hear his input too, but we don't hold off votes when people aren't here.
No,
He can catch it on video.
But I mean, this is kind of a major shift in the way we do business. Wouldn't you agree? Okay.
So my suggestion is that we get together and figure it out and come make our next meeting an agenda meeting, right?
When you say, you mean our
Start
next?
at 7:30, just because it's already advertised.
Was that
Have
the
a
fourth
workshop
Wednesday?
meeting, and then adjourn, and then come back into a regular meeting. And it would kind of set the ground rules for what we're talking about. And then, what is a workshop? How does it work?
By our next meeting, what do you mean?
so
A May meeting?
Yeah.
The May meeting
May
on
meeting.
the second Thursday.
Second Thursday, from
Okay.
7:30 to say 8 would be our workshop meeting. We could go over all this stuff, or anything that we want to come up with.
That kind of
But-
defeats the
But, yeah,
purpose,
it
having it the same
Well,
night.
no,
Make it
listen,
twice as long.
It also makes it long.
Yeah.
Well, this had been over 40 minutes ago. Anyway, if we're concerned about length,
Is this in the interest of having this all in one night? So that's kind
No,
of
it's
flies in the
what's
face of what
advertised.
we're trying to do here.
It's what's
Our
advertised.
fourth Wednesday of the month is already advertised too.
Right, it is.
But then see
I'm
what
not
would
in favor
happen
of
under
doing it
your
the same night. That
scenario.
really doesn't make sense
Just
to
like when
me.
we're back there, we say, well, we got to hurry up because our public meeting starts at 7:30. So we'll go through this workshops thing, and we got to get done because
Yeah,
our
you're right,
next
you're
meeting
right.
starts at.
So when is the fourth meeting?
22nd.
22nd of April.
I'm busy.
You have to be here.
There was something
Or
going on
maybe-
there. What's the name?
Or
Is it
maybe now
volunteer?
starts the every other month, I don't know. So we do, I don't know.
My suggestion is that if you're open to it, withdraw the motion and come back and discuss it the fourth Wednesday of this month, regularly advertised, and come up with a plan for what these things are.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
I mean, I'm all for it. I'm
Yeah,
I'm all
I'm with
for
you.
more information out there.
And the thing is, I mean, I hope you understand, and I guess this kind of magnified the situation, and that other than doing what I just did, I'd had to have a conversation with you, then a conversation with Sean, then a conversation, I mean, it would take way longer.
See you on the
Then we just sort
22nd.
of bring it up, talked about it. and-
I don't want to go over this again. We'll see each other on the 22nd.
Are we saying at 7:30? Is that what time the
7:30.
meeting's posted? 7:30?
So,
Okay.
just as a matter of, as the administrator, so I get this correct, is if the board follows through on what they're doing is, we will have a meeting on the 22nd of April to discuss the criteria and parameters of the suggested workshop meetings. That would be the item of that, that would be the discussion of that meeting, sir?
Sir.
Right.
Okay.
And all are welcome. Although are we concerned about, whether staff needs to attend or?
Are we going to video that are we going to video those workshop meetings?
No, I mean, it wasn't my intent.
Okay, I was just
Because
wondering.
again, I don't think the idea, the intent, at least my thought, again, only my own, was for us to share information, so on and so forth, not necessarily, the public's welcome to attend,
But we won't,
We're open.
understood, I understand now, thank you.
But we don't need the staff either, though.
but they're welcome to.
They're welcome to come, but it's not mandatory.
Not mandatory.
Not at the first
Well,
session.
at the
Not the
first
first.
session, if we're going to be talking about what the meetings are, I don't see why we need staff to come.
So the staff that would be in attendance would be myself and Mr.
Mr.
Foreman.
We
Foreman,
got to have Mr. Foreman.
Okay,
right?
all right.
And, yeah.
We don't want you to feel left out either, Mr. Grubik, so you're welcome.
Yeah. And we would,
I'll be down at the Chesapeake.
we would have to take minutes of that meeting also, sir.
Right.
Okay.
It's an official meeting.
Mr. President?
Yeah.
What I would envision too is if we're discussing something that pertains to a particular staff department, they would be at that meeting.
Absolutely.
But other than that, if there wasn't something on the agenda that we were specifically going over, I wouldn't see a reason for staff to have to, all of the staff to come to a workshop session.
Agree.
That's, I'm just throwing that out there. And just another suggestion, maybe as a test run, if there's something, I'm sure there'll be something coming up that's going to be on our May agenda, something that could require discussion. You might want to bring that information, or whomever, a staff person or whoever might want to bring that information to this meeting, April 22nd, to give it a test run.
Like what are you talking about?
I'll give you.
Whatever's going to be on the agenda. I don't know. I don't make the agenda.
There's a lot of different things. Like, for example, like Gary had it. We didn't discuss that. I saw it in their packet. And Frank McClevenco had said it to me many, many times. He said, boy, would you guys support, meaning the commissioners, allowing the planning commission to approve minor plans, not building plans, but like if someone's going to subdivide a lot from one lot to two. And he said, I think Gary said it was permitted in the township code, and Gary said, but I never thought, it's not me, because that's something that the whole board needs to weigh in on. That could be part of it. It could be, even if it's only a 10-minute discussion, it could be discussed. If someone from the planning commission has something they want to discuss, somebody from Shade Tree or one of our other township agencies.
But didn't we say that April 22nd was going to be the meeting to set the ground rules for all of these wonderful suggestions?
Exactly.
Can I see you?
We're done.
Yeah, so we're pretty much done because we're going to talk about it on April 22nd.
But you still have a motion on the floor. You need to withdraw that motion in second and go with the 22nd.
I know myself, I will come more prepared knowing that we're going to do this. I'll have a lot of ideas, and I'm thinking all of us can have ideas.
And we'll discuss this then, but we won't have Gary's agenda at that point.
That's correct.
The second meeting of the month. Typically, we won't, because that comes up the week before. When things are added all the time, then we get it on Fridays. So we'll figure that out.
Yeah, we'll discuss exactly how that works.
But we need to prepare an agenda for this, Mr. Myers.
Well, the agenda would be just to discuss what the agenda is going to be, I think, at this point.
Thank you.
I'm serious. I mean, I'm not trying to be a wise guy here. I'm really not. I'm just trying to get it right, sir. That's all. I just want to get this right. I think the initial agenda would be to discuss the criteria and parameters of a workshop session.
Well, I know that Commissioner Fleming has already attended these, but if you haven't attended a school board workshop session, whatever you want to call it, their second meeting, if you took the time to attend one of those, you would see how it flows, or actually any workshop session around here. There's quite a few municipalities that have them. It's really not that complicated.
Less painful than regular school board meetings?
All right, so Mr. Schubert, do you want to withdraw your motion?
I'll withdraw my motion.
And Mr. Barczyk, your second?
Yes.
That's what we'll do. See you on the 22nd.
Okay. Approval of reports of.
Well, we're in commissioners' comments.
Yes.
Anything else, I guess?
Your report.
Yeah, that's the longest report. I don't want any more flack from anybody.
I agree. Second.
I just have a quick comment. Right before coming to the meeting tonight, we received an email regarding, I'm not sure if we can say his name, but let's just say, let's just continue to pray for for those of you who pray. Let's continue to pray for the families of our firefighters.
And police officers.
And police officers, let's say that. And that's it. That's my comment, yeah.
There's one who especially needs our thoughts and prayers tonight.
Amen.
Okay, any other comments?
Mr. President, I make the motion to approve the report of bills paid in the amount of $701,600.88.
Second.
Moved and second. Any comment? All in favor?
Aye. Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second. Aye.
We are out of here.